Good morning and welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes. As always, I have my instant cup of coffee going, and something a little bit different this morning that I'm very excited about is that I'm using my brand new tripod on the bed here in front of me. It's one of the reasons I bought this Ulanzi MT44 tripod is because I often record behind the scenes videos sitting here in my bed, and in order to mount a camera on the bed or aiming at me on the bed, I have to go through some pretty incredible furniture gymnastics, piling up chairs, piling up bedside tables on the bed itself. And I have to do a lot of work to figure out how to mount the camera in this position. And now that I have this tripod with a wider base and a higher height, I just put the tripod on the bed, and then now I can film myself so much easier. It's great. And what I'm doing this morning to kick off is just getting up to date by reading a couple of my journal entries. I wrote some longer journal entries that I didn't record on video. I just wasn't in the mood to set up the camera. So I enjoy writing quite a bit, so I would just wake up in the morning and write what was going on in my life behind the scenes rather than record it on video. But in order to get a video record of it on behind the scenes, I'm just going to read it aloud for now. As I drink my coffee, beautiful day outside, by the way, looking out my window, nice and sunny. I should be out there doing things, but here I am. I have two journal entries to read. Number 1, update, back at the Crossroads Hotel and new hotel room adventures. Tuesday, September 30th, 2025, 7:50 a.m., room 407, Crossroads Hotel, Chow Kit, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I don't have any big stories to tell this morning, but there have been a few changes since yesterday. For one thing, I'm in a different hotel. I won't call it a new hotel because I've stayed here before. I'm in a standard twin room at the Crossroads Hotel, which is just around the corner from the Raja boat, where I was staying before. I moved mainly because I just felt like a change. I thought it would be fun, but I also wasn't able to renew my exact room at the Raja boat. I could have extended my stay there, but to do so, I would have had to pack up and move into a different room. And if my day is going to be dominated by this need to pack up and then essentially check out and check back in, I might as well look around and see if it made sense to change not only my room, but my hotel. At that time, I still had hope that my Lazada package was going to be delivered before I left. I got the notification from Lazada at 10:08 on Sunday morning that your parcel is on the way. So I figured it would arrive on Sunday in the afternoon or even before noon. After I received that notification, I rushed back to the Raja boat just in case it would show up within the hour. I was having brunch with Daryl and the boys at the time, and they all went on to have coffee somewhere else. But I said goodbye to them and returned to the Raja boat to await delivery. Sadly, nothing happened. It is now 46 hours since I got that message, and the package has not arrived. As far as I can tell, it hasn't moved at all. I still don't even know where it is. That notification on Sunday morning was the last update I got, and everything else remains the same. Contacting Lazada is impossible, and the tracking number still doesn't work. Lazada has a customer service firewall in the shape of a chatbot that they call Clio. The only way to communicate with Lazada is with Clio. Not surprisingly, Clio is useless. It can't do anything, and it doesn't know anything. It just repeats whatever information is on the computer system. For example, it tells me to just use the tracking number to find out where the package is. I tell Clio that the tracking number doesn't work, and it just repeats the instructions to use the tracking number. I played around with Clio the chatbot a little bit just for fun, and I pretended it was something I could have an actual conversation with, and I said things like, You're not listening to me. I told you that the tracking number doesn't work. I've put it into a half dozen different tracking apps, and they all say that my package can't be located and the tracking number is invalid. And then Cleo just apologizes for any inconvenience caused and thanks me for my patience. Then I would write to Cleo and say, "You just thanked me for my patience, but right now I'm out of patience. You're not helping me at all." And Cleo would say, "I'm very sorry you feel that way. Rest assured that we are working tirelessly to help you. Have a great day." And I would write back, "How can I have a great day when you can't even answer the most basic question about my package? I'm having a terrible day." And then Cleo would give me a list of prepared issues and say, "Please choose one of the following to help us understand how to help you." And we would just go around and around in circles. I knew Cleo couldn't do anything. I was just bored and entertaining myself to see what Cleo would say. I had read in various places that if you annoyed Cleo long enough, the chatbot will automatically escalate the chat to contact with an actual human being. But I guess I was never annoying enough because that never happened. Every time I went back to Cleo, it was just as useless as before. I find it fascinating that all of this drama could be avoided if Lazada added just one simple piece of information to their system. If, after the failed delivery, the system said, "We will try to deliver your package again within 1 to 3 business days," then I could relax and get on with my life. That's the only information I need, but it doesn't even say that. So I have no assurance that anything is happening. I don't know if what is happening is normal or if my package is stuck or lost. Of course, it would also be nice if the tracking number worked, and it would be nice if their updates and notifications were less confusing. Sending me a notification that says, "Your parcel is on the way," is not a great idea if the package is, in fact, not going to be delivered for another 3 business days. I understand that multiverses are all the rage, and I live on planet Doug, but it seems like in any universe, and even on planet Doug, on the way never means 3 days from now. Can you imagine a friend meeting you for coffee and they say, "I'm on the way," and they show up 4 days later? That's not my definition of on the way. I'm seeing in comments that people feel Shopee is the better choice. People are saying that Shopee is the way to go if you want more reliable deliveries and better communication. I will definitely not use Lazada again anytime soon. If I decide I need some other little techno gizmo delivered, I will go back to looking in actual stores. Failing that, I will use Shopee. I've never used Shopee that I can remember. I just checked and I don't have an account with them. But I'll definitely create one now after this experience with Lazada. I'm also extremely tired of the Lazada advertisements. Since I'm waiting for this package to be delivered, I had to turn on Lazada notifications and take my phone off silent mode. And the constant beeping and buzzing and noises my phone makes as Lazada floods my life with ads is overwhelming. I wish I could limit my notifications on Lazada such that I only received important notifications regarding deliveries, but that doesn't seem to be possible. Lazada appears to say that if you want to get notifications about the time and date and century of your delivery, you must also receive 5 advertisements an hour. A funny thing is that I keep getting ads about various tripods and selfie grips that are for sale on Lazada. That's one thing their Cleo is good at. Cleo knows that I ordered a tripod, so it must be something I'm interested in. "Oh, so you like tripods? Well, here are 100 more you might like." Sorry, Cleo, I already picked out the one I liked. Now I just need it to be delivered. To get back to my hotel story, I did eventually decide that if I needed to pack up and change rooms anyway, I might as well also change hotels. And I looked around and I saw that I could get a relatively good deal back at my old home, the Crossroads Hotel. It wasn't the 39 ringgit per night deal that I got initially when I first discovered that hotel, but the price per night was in range with the prices at the Raja boat. I think I finally got the Agoda price down to 53 ringgit. With the tourism tax and all the other taxes and the 5 ringgit cleaning fee, it came to 75 ringgit per night. That's very much on the high end for me, but I did it anyway. A room at the Raja boat would have cost the same because they only had large family rooms left. And the room at the Crossroads was much bigger, and it came with a mini fridge and what they called a coffee maker and other things. On Monday morning, I was still hoping that the parcel would arrive before the 12 noon checkout time, but that didn't happen. And when I went down to the lobby to check out, I had to chat with the hotel clerk on duty and explain my situation and see if I could convince them to accept delivery if and when it came, and hold it at the desk, and I would come back and get it. I hate asking for favors like that. It feels like I am putting the hotel clerk on the spot, and this hotel clerk was clearly uncomfortable with the idea. I'd cleared it with the other front desk clerk, but he is a more easygoing fellow, and we've had lots of chats about my YouTube channel and other things. The other front desk clerk is equally friendly and nice, but he is also a bit more by the book, and he instantly worried about this arrangement and did not want to take responsibility for any delivery meant for me when I was no longer a hotel guest. He was worried that he would have no way to contact me, etc. But I assured him that I could see if and when the package was delivered through the Lazada app. He did not need to contact me. In fact, I wasn't expecting him to take any responsibility at all. I told him that at this point, I didn't care whether I ever received this package or not. If it showed up, fine. If it didn't, equally fine. If I never saw this tripod or this parcel in my lifetime, that was fine with me. Eventually, I wore him down and he reluctantly agreed, though I don't think he quite understood what he was agreeing to. After I officially checked out, I hung out in the lobby of the Raja boat for a while. It was noon, and I had that annoying 2-hour period between check-out and check-in to deal with. It was possible I could just go to the Crossroads and they'd let me check into a room early, but I didn't know that for sure, and I was in no hurry to rush there. And I had the opportunity to chat with another foreigner. There was a young guy from America also checking out of the Raja boat and moving to another hotel. He had a room booked at the Swing and Pillows, and he was moving there. But his check-in time was 3 p.m., so he had even more time to kill. I didn't learn a lot about him, but I enjoyed our chat. We compared notes on all kinds of travel experiences, and I learned that he had been on the road as a backpacker for somewhere between 2 and 3 years, and in that time he had been to 63 countries. He surprised me with the breadth of his travels, even within countries. He started listing off places within Malaysia that he had visited, such as places you don't often hear about, such as Muar and Gopeng. He seemed to have been everywhere. And on Sumatra, he had been to Padang and Medan and even Banda Aceh. And we got to compare notes on our fun experiences in Indonesia. After an hour or so, I said goodbye and slowly made my way over to the Crossroads. The first time I stayed at this hotel, I made a joke in my video about how dark and gloomy the lobby area was, and how the stone-faced hotel clerk struck me as a potential serial killer. And that same stone-faced clerk was there this time too to check me in. and the entryway and the lobby and hallways were just as dark and gloomy. I noted what a stark contrast there was between the photos on Agoda and the reality. For the photos on Agoda, somebody had cleaned up the place and turned on the lights. Everything was bright and cheerful and welcoming. In reality, it seemed like a place you came to be murdered. The hotel clerk was again remarkably emotionless. I suppose I can't really criticize him. He did his job. He checked me in. There was nothing to complain about. Yet there was nothing to be happy about either. I did not feel welcome, that's for sure. He seemed angry with me more than anything else, and he spoke in an abrupt yet very quiet way such that I couldn't make out what he was saying. I wanted to ask him why in the world he accepted a job in the hospitality industry. Given his personality and cold and unfriendly demeanor, surely there were more suitable careers. Luckily, I had stayed at this hotel before, so I knew the drill. I knew that they charged a super annoying 5 ringgit cleaning fee. Rather than be annoyed at that, I had my 5 ringgit ready. And I knew they asked for a 50 ringgit deposit, and they gave you no receipt for that. So I was prepared for that particular annoyance as well. One hiccup came when I pulled out a photocopy of my passport for him. I hadn't had to show my passport for a long time, so this was the first time I had to think about the fact that I had both my old passport number and my new one. I hadn't updated the passport number on my Agoda account, so that's the passport number he would be looking for. And I gave him the photocopy of that passport, hoping it wouldn't matter. But he insisted on seeing the passport itself. I had to dig around in my bag and get it out. And while I did so, I wondered how this was going to turn out. This old passport was now canceled. It had the corner cut off. It had the giant word "canceled" stamped in red ink on every page. I figured he would notice that and refuse to accept it. And then I'd have to produce my new passport and explain how I'd just gotten a new one, but it didn't have my Malaysian visa stamp in it, etc. At that point, I figured that since I lived on Planet Doug, he would refuse to give me a room, or he would call the police. But not being particularly invested in or excited about his job as a hotel front desk clerk, he barely glanced at my passport. He made a photocopy of it and handed it back. He never remarked on the fact that it was clearly canceled and no longer a valid travel document. And then I just ended up standing there. Everything was done. I was checked in, but he hadn't given me a room key. So I waited patiently. There was one more step to this process. He had to assign a room and give me a room key. But he seemed uninterested in doing so. He sat back down in his chair and went back to staring off into space. I stood there at the desk, unsure of what to do. Had he just forgotten this final vital step? Were we waiting for something? I stood there for what felt like a very long time. Any hotel clerk that was tuned into their job would pick up on the fact that their guest was still standing there and waiting for something. But this fellow had other things on his mind. Contemplating a new career? Serial killing? Finally, I spoke up and I suggested to him what was probably happening. I said, "Is the room not ready?" He seemed startled that I was still there, and he looked at me like he was surprised to find himself in a hotel lobby, and he said, "Not ready." And he looked away, presumably to contemplate more serial killing. I was really surprised that it hadn't occurred to him to tell me that my room wasn't ready yet and I had to wait. I understood that he wasn't very good at his job and he was remarkably uninterested in it. Yet there's a rhythm and a routine to checking into a hotel. He must have done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. And the routine always ends with handing the guest the room key. That's the final stage. And you'd think that not giving me my room key would prompt him to at least say the words to me, "Your room isn't ready yet." But he never said a word. I find that so hard to understand. I understand that the world is divided into people who care about customer service and doing a good job, and people who don't. But it's remarkable that anyone could be so dramatically uninterested as this young man. How did he get the job? How does he keep it? Why does he keep it? Of course, I had no problem waiting for my room to be ready. I just needed to be told that this was the situation. And now that this had been cleared up, I settled down in a comfortable chair in the lobby to wait. It was about 1:30, and I figured I had to wait about 30 minutes at the most, and that was fine with me. I spent the time looking around the lobby and at the other people milling about, also waiting for their room to be ready, or waiting until they had to leave for the airport or something like that. I noticed that most of the people seemed to be immigrant workers of one kind or another. I think this Crossroads Hotel and this neighborhood in general is popular with immigrant workers and their families. As a typical white dude, I was definitely the odd one out. And I wondered if this is why I found the customer service so lacking. I do find that people from most Asian countries, particularly immigrant workers, are much tougher than I am. They don't come into a hotel expecting the lights to be on and for the hotel clerk to welcome them with a smile. I'm sure all these people were staying at the Crossroads for the same reason I was. It was one of the cheaper alternatives. They cared about the price, and that was about it. As long as the price was right, they didn't care whether the hotel clerk had graduated from a hospitality course and greeted them with a warm welcome and did things like inform them about where the cold and hot water dispenser might be. Shortly before 2, my room was ready, and I got my room key. I got room 408, and I rode the elevator up to the 4th floor. The room turned out to be an interesting beast, and its nature sparked a whole new round of Planet Doug-style thoughts. The first thing that struck me was that the room was much nicer and bigger than I expected. The first time I stayed here, I somehow ended up with a queen deluxe room, and it was really nice. And then my friend Jason got a room here as well, and his room was awful. For the price, and compared to my room, it was a dump. He used up an entire package of wet wipes just wiping down the various surfaces and floors and fixtures to make it livable. His room was small and uncomfortable. The bathroom area was falling apart. Of course, it had no window and little of anything else. And during his time there, the air conditioner stopped working completely. So I thought that what Jason got was a normal room, and my Queen Deluxe luxury was an anomaly. And this time, I didn't get a Queen Deluxe at a good price. I got what they called a standard twin, and I didn't know what the room would be like. I thought perhaps it would be like Jason's room. But Jason must have gotten an even lower class because his room was awful and my standard twin was pretty sweet. It struck me as quite large, spacious even. The furniture was classic, perhaps 90s decor or 80s or something like that. The bathroom was awesome with lots of space, a separate shower area, great water pressure and hot water, and big, tall mirrors. I was quite pleased on first impressions, and I was glad that I had moved from the Raja boat to here. This room had character. However, there were some issues. For one thing, none of the items that were listed for this room actually existed. The main reason I had chosen this particular room and made the decision to switch hotels was that this room came with a mini fridge. a Planet Doug mystery benefactor had sent me a care package, including a liter of milk and a large bottle of premium iced cafe latte, and these needed to be kept refrigerated. But here I was in my new room, and I could see the space in the furniture where the mini fridge was supposed to be, but it was just an empty space. This discrepancy between how hotel rooms are described and how they are in real life always sparks some thoughts in my brain. For one thing, I don't want to come across as the guy complaining about discomforts and things not working. I'm not that guy. I'm perfectly happy living in cheap dumps. I have spent much of my life living in what some people might call squalor. I don't need comfort. Yet I wonder how hotels can get away with what are essentially total lies. They may not be intending to lie, but it still ends up being a lie. To be honest, I sort of suspected this would happen. And when I booked this room, I took a screenshot of how this room was described on Agoda, and this is what is supposed to be in the room according to the listing. Private bathroom, hair dryer, shower, free Wi-Fi, blackout curtains, mini bar, free bottled water, coffee and tea maker, refrigerator, and window. That's the room I booked for 53 ringgit. But other than the bathroom, shower, and Wi-Fi, none of that is here. There is certainly no fridge, hair dryer, or coffee maker. There are also no blackout curtains and no window to even put them on. There isn't even a bottle of water. So my question is, how do companies get away with this? We normal people in our lives can't do this. We can't promise our employers and landlords all kinds of things and not give them. We must come through on our end. If we don't, we get fined and arrested and fired and things like that. Yet companies and corporations and hotels can do whatever they want, and we guests and customers just have to take it. I wonder if we have just become docile, particularly in the world of computers and online booking and chatbots. We just expect hotels to lie to us, and we do nothing about it. They put fake pictures on their Agoda listings. They say the room has a mini fridge when it doesn't. They say the room has a window when it doesn't. And we just accept it as the way the world works. And this is particularly true of the low budget world. I guess if I were staying at a 5-star hotel for 500 ringgit a night, I would stand up for my rights. If I didn't get the room I paid for, I'd go to the front desk and ask for a room change. If something was broken in the room and things didn't work, I'd tell the hotel staff and expect them to fix it. But when you stay at a low budget hotel, you come in expecting things to be broken or missing, and you just let it go. But where do you draw the line? A funny thing is that later in the day, I left my room and went to the elevator to go down, and while I was waiting for the elevator, I was looking around. And in the stairway, I saw a stack of 3 mini fridges. Obviously, over the years, the mini fridges had broken down, and they just tossed them into the stairway and left them there to rot. But the rooms all still proudly list a mini fridge among their facilities. And I suppose they could argue that there are mini fridges. They just don't work, and they aren't actually in the room. They are sort of room adjacent. Light bulbs are also a thing with me. I've talked about that a lot in my videos. As has come up multiple times, I even buy and bring my own light bulbs so that I can use them in my hotel room to make the place a bit more cheerful. The thing is that low-budget hotels will slowly replace all their regular light bulbs with low-energy, very dim light bulbs. I guess it saves them money on their electricity bill. But it makes the rooms so gloomy and sad. So I like to unscrew their light bulbs and put in my own 100-watt bulbs and brighten the place up a bit. And this room is no different. It's a big, spacious, and potentially pleasant room, but it is let down by how dark and gloomy it is. There simply aren't enough lights. And the light fixtures that do exist have sad little low-energy bulbs that emit a weak yellow glow, and that's about it. I find myself squinting as I look around the room to try to make out what's going on. But there is one thing about this room that I really don't like. I can live with the low wattage bulbs. I can live with the missing fridge and coffee maker. I just drank all the milk and all the cafe latte yesterday afternoon and evening before it spoiled. I have my own kettle to boil water for coffee. I have my own water bottles, and I go out and fill them up at water dispensers. But one thing that bothers me is that room 408 is connected by an internal door to room 409 next door, and that door is thin, so I can hear everything going on in that room, and I hate that. I end up feeling uncomfortable in my own room because I'm so worried about disturbing the person or people next door. I normally listen to podcasts on my Bluetooth speaker, but now I can't because I know the sound will carry over to the next room. I tiptoe around carefully not to make any noise. And then I always end up paying the price for that, because even though I try to be considerate of the people in the next room, the people in that room never are. They usually make just as much noise as they like, shouting into smartphones, playing the TV loudly, and worst of all, coughing and hacking and coughing and hacking. There is just a single man staying in that room, I think. I've never seen him, but I think he is an elderly man. Luckily, he's relatively quiet. He doesn't scream into his smartphone, so far. He doesn't play the TV at high volume, so far. There are no children running around and screaming. He doesn't slam doors, but he's ill because he is coughing a lot, and I hear it all through the night. It just makes me aware that he is over there and listening to every sound from over here. Worse than that, he's a smoker. He's not supposed to smoke in his room. Nobody is, but other than me, people don't pay attention to the rules in these low-budget hotels, and they smoke anyway. And this guy has been smoking regularly. And I have a funny relationship with cigarette smoke. If I'm sitting at a bar, having a beer with a friend, and that friend is smoking, it doesn't bother me at all. People can smoke right beside me, and I'm fine with it. But when cigarette smoke gets diluted and it seeps under the door and into my room, I have a powerful allergic reaction to it. My eyes burn, my nose starts running, I start sneezing, and my throat becomes raw and sore, and I can't sleep. It's like thin smoke from the room next door makes me a wreck, while full cigarette smoke has no effect. Anyway, I asked earlier the hypothetical question of where does one draw the line? I can go down to the front desk and show the clerk the listing for my hotel room and demand to know, where is my mini fridge? Where is my coffee maker? Where is my hair dryer and complimentary bottle of water? For that matter, where is my window? But it's a fool's errand. The hotel clerk doesn't know and doesn't care. I can demand that they change and update the Agoda listing and quit lying to their guests, but they won't. I can write a negative review on Agoda and on Google Maps, but what's the point? You might as well try to hold back a tsunami with your hands. Plus, I don't want to be one of those people. I'm in a hotel filled with immigrant workers who smoke and shout into their smartphones and slam doors. That's how they live and behave normally and naturally. I don't want to be that annoying white dude from Canada going down to the front desk and complaining about things. You gotta adapt and just accept the world as it is rather than fight against everything. You'll wear yourself out doing that. But even I have my limits. And I have to say that this connecting door to the neighboring room with the cigarette smoke is tough to deal with. It really makes my life much worse to have my eyes burning, my throat sore, and be unable to sleep. But I don't think there's much I can do about it. I could ask to be moved to a different room, but that is like walking blind into a minefield. Chances are that a different room will have a new, much worse unpleasant surprise. There's no guarantee that a new room will be a better room. And even getting rid of the connecting door doesn't solve the cigarette problem. The same thing happens when people smoke in the hallways, and the smoke seeps under the door from there. And to change rooms, I have to pack up again, and my whole day will revolve around moving out of this room at noon and waiting 2 hours until 2 for the next room to be ready. And I could end up being in a worse room than this one. So I will just stay put. The first thing I did when I moved into this room was roll up a towel and put it on the floor at the base of the door. That will keep out some of the smoke. Maybe I can pick up a roll of packing tape and seal the entire door. To be honest, I would do that, but I don't want to end up damaging the walls and peeling off paint and leaving sticky tape residue. Well, I did not intend to write over 5,000 words, but I did. This is the normal type of journal entry that I would write in the morning before I started my YouTube life. In fact, I would continue writing much longer because I have several stories and thoughts left that I haven't gotten to, but I must move on to YouTube-related activities, so I will leave it there for now and get on with the rest of my day. And that was the end of that journal entry. I have one more that I'm going to read. And just a little quick update. That room that I was describing, I'm not in that room anymore. I'm in a different room, and I will talk about the new room in the next journal entry. On to the next one. It just occurs to me though that I should probably give these a different name, because within Patreon, which is where I'm getting these things from, I have different categories for Patreon posts, and I call these updates. But it's not really an update because it's too long. It's more of a journal entry. An update is something quick and snappy, like a little something that happened, very small thing, or I have a meal and I post some pictures of the meal and it's a very short description. This is a journal entry, so somehow I should have another name for it other than update. But anyway, here we go. Update: hotel smokers and credit card fraud. Saturday, October 4th, 2025, 8:32 a.m., room 307, Crossroads Hotel, Chow Kit, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The smoker in room 408. A few things have happened over the last few days. I'm still in Kuala Lumpur. I keep uncovering new things I want to do or need to do while I'm here. One thing I did was move to a new room here at the Crossroads Hotel. That was a major relief. My previous room, room 407, was a standard twin, and it had a connecting door to room 408. A lot of the rooms here have doors that connect them to neighboring rooms. These rooms are always a problem because these thin doors allow sound to carry, and you hear everything going on in the room next door. And then I feel self-conscious about making noise. I'm usually very conscious of that even in a normal room. I try to be considerate of neighbors, and I don't make excessive noise or slam doors or anything like that. But I do like to occasionally play a podcast over a Bluetooth speaker, and I occasionally need to play audio over my laptop's speakers. But with a thin connecting door, I didn't feel comfortable doing even that. I ended up tiptoeing around my room like it was filled with sleeping babies, and I never got comfortable. But the sound wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that the man in the room next to mine was a heavy smoker, and he smoked day and night in his room. And that cigarette smoke poured into my room. Of course, as soon as I moved into the room, I put a towel on the floor to try to cover up the gap at the bottom of the door. But doing that has more of a psychological effect than anything else. You feel like you're blocking something, but it doesn't work at all. The smoke filled my room 24 hours a day, and my eyes burned, my throat was raw and sore, my nose started running, and I sneezed all the time. I don't know how this works, but if I sit beside someone at a table and they smoke, it doesn't bother me at all. But when smoke seeps into my hotel room from outside, that lesser amount of smoke sets off a strong allergic reaction in my body. It's just awful, and I find it hard to do anything. It's nearly impossible to sleep, and I lived in dread of the dude lighting up a new cigarette and the smoke just pouring in. I never quite know what to do in these situations. In movies, people stand up for themselves. They knock on the door to the neighboring room and talk to the occupants and ask them to stop smoking, stop playing the TV at high volume at 2 a.m., stop slamming doors, and stop doing all the things that are bothering everyone around them. But in the real world, it's not so easy. I don't like telling other people what to do. When people do annoying things around me, I simply move away from them. I change my life and my situation to get away from them. I would feel bad if I demanded that this man stop smoking in his room. I don't want to make him unhappy and deny him the pleasure of smoking. And this feeling becomes stronger when you are a foreigner overseas. I never want to be that foreigner who wanders around another country complaining all the time and trying to change people and tell them what to do and how to live. In most countries I visit, people aren't sensitive to noise and slamming doors and cigarette smoke. That's a Doug thing, if not a Canadian thing. There are tons of normal, day-to-day behaviors in other countries that are bothersome and make no sense to me. But that's the norm in those places. And it's not logical or smart to wander around in a constant state of annoyance and try to change people. It's just who they are and what they do. But to be honest, I was pretty annoyed. I had ended up paying more than I wanted to for this room. Accommodation in Kuala Lumpur seems to be getting more expensive all the time, and the low-budget hotels are raising their prices. It's a struggle to find budget-friendly rooms, and I eventually had no choice but to bite the bullet and pay what felt like a lot for this room. And bad feelings started early because the room I booked on Agoda was supposed to have a fridge and hair dryer and all the other little luxuries. I paid for that room in particular because it was the only room available, but I comforted myself by imagining a life of luxury with a refrigerator. Yet the room was bare. None of those things were present. So right out of the gate, I was put in an uncomfortable position. The room I booked online clearly had all these items listed. In particular, it was supposed to have a window and a refrigerator, yet the refrigerator was missing and there was no window. And I knew complaining about that would just lead to frustration. The hotel clerk would just stare at me in confusion and do nothing and be able to do nothing. It's normal for hotels to lie in their online listings. It's just how things are. And if you go around the world constantly complaining when your room doesn't have the facilities it is supposed to have, you are setting yourself up for a miserable time. And then the smoking started. So I sat in the room just fuming and feeling bad. I often wonder about the people in the world who smoke in hotel rooms, slam doors, make noise all night, throw garbage on the ground, and all these things. Are they aware of their behavior? Do they know that they are bothering all the people around them? The other day, I was on the platform of the monorail, and it was a relatively busy time. The train pulled up, and there were clearly lots of people on the train waiting to get off. Of course, I stood far to the side to allow people to get off first before I got on. That's just common sense and polite behavior. But other people stood right in front of the door, and I was annoyed with them before the doors even opened. There was one couple in particular that planted themselves directly in front of the door. The man stood behind his wife, and when the doors started to open, you could see that his wife started to move to the side, but the man stopped her and pushed her from behind and forced her to dive straight towards the opening gap between the doors. And then the inevitable happened. The people trying to get on the train met the people trying to get off, and nobody could move, and there was chaos. And I wonder about this husband and wife. Sure, they were first on the train and did get a seat, and they can look around and be proud of themselves that they fought for themselves and got an advantage. Yet they were horribly rude, and they caused trouble for everyone around them. And I wonder if this man knows who he is. Is he aware of what he is doing, and he just doesn't care? I often want to walk up to these people and just have a polite conversation with them. I want to ask this man about what he just did. Did he do it on purpose? Did he know he had caused so much trouble for other people? And does he know that as he goes about his normal day, lots of people around him end up disliking him? We all go home thinking about that horrible man on the monorail. And I wonder if rude people ever pay a price for their behavior. Maybe they go through life completely happy and satisfied, doing whatever they want to do, regardless of how it affects people around them. Maybe they never know the trouble they caused. Or do they know, and they just don't care? But again, there is always the question of being a guest in a foreign country. It's not my role to try to change how people in other countries behave. I was surprised that none of the Malaysians trying to get off the train showed any annoyance with this man. People just accept this type of behavior as normal for the most part, and nobody seems to get upset. So I'm the outlier. Anyway, I did not knock on the door of room 408 and ask the man to stop smoking. And I tried to adopt a calm mood and attitude and simply accept the situation and get on with my life. But it got harder and harder as time passed, and I was unable to sleep and had trouble doing anything because of my burning eyes and running nose and raw throat. A funny thing is that in all these situations, you can't help but sit there or lie there and imagine things you could do. Should I write a note and slip it under his door? Should I write a note and tape it to his door? Should I rat him out to the hotel staff? Should I slam my fist against the door and say loud, angry things about cigarette smoke? In the end, I did say something to the staff at the hotel. I came up with a passive-aggressive strategy that would allow me to complain, and yet I wasn't really complaining. I was having a casual conversation with the hotel clerk about something else, and then I slipped a "by the way" into the conversation. I knew I was being weak and passive-aggressive, but I couldn't help it. I was pretty annoyed and tired, and I said, "By the way, when I check out of my room and you smell cigarette smoke, it wasn't me. I don't smoke. All that smoke is coming from the room next door." The thing is that you're not supposed to smoke in hotel rooms anymore. Most hotels will hit you with a big fine if you check out and they smell smoke in your room. So it was reasonable to tell this hotel clerk that my room stinks of cigarette smoke, but it wasn't me. So I was trying to avoid a fine. But of course, what I was really doing was lodging a complaint without officially lodging a complaint. It was weak sauce, of course, but I'm glad I did it just because of the hotel clerk's humorous and typical response. He said he would give me an extra towel and I could block the gap at the bottom of the door. Clearly, the hotel didn't care if people smoked in their room. There were signs saying that you weren't allowed to smoke, but it wasn't enforced. It's just not that type of hotel. It's a bit rough around the edges, and they let people do what they want for the most part. Anyway, I didn't intend to go on such a long rant on this topic. What I wanted to say was simply that I moved to a new room. I extended my stay at this hotel, and to get away from the smoking man, I made sure to book a different type of room that would force the hotel to assign me a new room. The smoking room was a standard twin, and for my new room, I booked a Queen Deluxe. Oddly enough, the Queen Deluxe was cheaper than the standard twin. I don't know why. Unfortunately, the way the rooms work, the Queen Deluxe also has a connecting door to another room. I would still have a connecting door to a neighboring room. There was no getting away from that. I was just rolling the dice and hoping that the person or people in the new connecting room would not be heavy smokers or be incredibly noisy. Plus, if there was an issue with smoke, at least I'd be able to open the window. Of course, I'm the one that ends up being inconvenienced by all this. Because of the smoker and having to change rooms, I had to spend a chunk of the morning packing up and getting organized. Then, at noon, I had to go down to the lobby with my bags and officially check out. And then I had to wait 2.5 hours for the new room to be cleaned and ready. And then I moved back in and unpacked. So I kind of wasted a day just because I wanted to change rooms. Meanwhile, the rude smoker was able to relax in his room all day undisturbed. The rude people always seem to benefit. Of course, moving into a new room is always a bit of an adventure. I escaped one room with the smoker and very dim lighting and no windows, and I was assumed room 307, a room I was in before. When I was in this room before, I liked it. It has large windows, a nice queen-sized bed, a kettle, and a refrigerator. The odd thing is that the Agoda listing for this Queen Deluxe room does not list a refrigerator or kettle. The standard twin was supposed to have a fridge and kettle, but didn't. The Queen Deluxe is not supposed to have a fridge and kettle, yet it does. Who can figure these things out? Unfortunately, room 307 has developed its own problem. The air conditioner makes a very loud noise. It sounds like it is going to explode at any minute. It's buzzing and roaring, and the sound is so loud that it is hard to concentrate or sleep. Once again, I have to make a choice, and neither choice is a good one. Of course, in the normal world, you'd tell the hotel about the problem, and they would fix it. But in a low-budget hotel, that sort of thing doesn't happen. And if you complain about the broken air conditioner, you are setting yourself up for endless hassle as they come to your room and investigate. And there will usually be 5 or 6 of these visits as different people knock on your door and then want to come in and play around with the air conditioner. And they think they have fixed it by just jiggling it and turning it off and on. But the moment they leave, the buzzing returns. And then there will be long discussions and endless communication about when a repair person will come. Essentially, you will make your life miserable for days with all the hassle surrounding trying to get the air conditioner to stop making this racket. So it's better to just live with it. Luckily, I am accustomed to sleeping with earplugs, and I just use earplugs at night to drown out the air conditioner. And during the day, I put in earphones plugged into my laptop. I just ignore the loud buzzing as best I can. Credit card fraud. Another problem that came my way was yet another episode of credit card fraud. I don't think there was any actual fraud. I don't think there were any fraudulent charges made on my credit card, but to my horror, I came back to room 307 in the roaring air conditioner last night to discover an email from my bank in Canada from the fraud detection unit, saying that my credit card was at risk and I had to call them as soon as possible. My heart sank. There is nothing in my life that affects me more than a problem like this, with the necessity of calling my bank. It is so stressful and difficult and time-consuming. It's exhausting. And my instinct was just to go to bed. It was late. I was super tired. The last thing I wanted to do was spend 2 hours on the phone trying to get this sorted out. But I forced myself to be an adult and just deal with it. If I just went to bed, I'd be stressed out all night and it would be difficult to sleep. So I got prepared as best I could by gathering up all the essential information and cards and documents. I made sure my phone was fully charged and that I had a good internet connection. And then I took several huge, deep breaths and dialed the number for the bank. I suppose things didn't go as badly as they could have, and the end result was acceptable. However, it wasn't easy, and there were many twists and turns. I had to get through the automated system first by entering my credit card number and then selecting the appropriate line based on my problem, and then I was on hold for a long time. My heart was pounding, and I tried hard to take steady breaths and slow my heart rate and relax. Finally, someone came on the line, and of course, I had trouble understanding them. It's so hard for me to understand what people are saying on the phone. And I worry that by constantly not understanding and asking for clarification and getting things wrong, I'm sending signals that I'm a criminal. I know I sound nervous, but I'm not nervous because I'm a criminal. I'm nervous because contacting my bank is always so stressful. And it didn't take long to run into a problem. The thing is that everything about me is wrong. They expect me to be in Canada, living at the address listed with my bank. And I'm terrified that if they learn the truth of where I am and how long I've been outside of Canada, that they will instantly shut down everything. I will lose my one bank account and my one credit card, and my life will essentially be over. So I try to get through these conversations with my bank without betraying that I'm calling them from another country and that I don't really live in Canada anymore. Unfortunately, in this case, it wasn't possible. The man I was talking to assumed I was at my home in Canada, and he wanted to send me a security code via my home phone number. And I had to confess that I was calling him from the other side of the world, and I couldn't answer that phone. As expected, that caused a big problem. I could hear him take a big breath, and he said something about how that changed everything, and I would not be able to go through the regular security and identity verification checks and systems. He would have to pass me on to another department. I was now fully panic-stricken, and he put me back on hold and transferred my call to somewhere else. Luckily, I wasn't on hold for an hour each time, as usually happens. I was on hold long enough to start freaking out and getting tired, but it wasn't a crazy long time. And then another man came on the line, and now he had to verify that I really was who I said I was. And this strikes me as a very strange aspect of the modern world. I have security in layers on everything in my life. We all do. And this security involves fingerprints, facial recognition, complex 32-character passwords stored in a high-security password manager, etc. We live in a world of DNA identification and retinal scans. Yet, when there is a problem with my credit card, the only way I can fix it is by making a phone call. And the bank is essentially just receiving a random phone call from Malaysia from an unknown phone number from a guy claiming to be me. You can't ask for anything less secure. It is the absolute least secure method of communicating of all available methods. Yet this phone call is the only way to get this problem cleared up. So now this man at the bank has to put me through a series of tests to decide whether or not I am really me. It's ridiculous when you think about it. There are countless movies and TV shows where they are trying to figure out if a person really is who they say they are, and they try to ask that person a question to which only they know the answer. And this is what this guy at the bank is doing. He's basically conducting an exam to test me on knowledge about myself. And then he makes a judgment call about whether I passed the test or not. I felt like a student doing final exams. He starts with the easy questions. What is my full name? What is my phone number? Then he asks me for my complete address. I had to make sure to have all this information at my fingertips in advance. And I felt very proud of myself that I was able to rattle all this off and sound convincing. And each time I got the answer right, the man said, "Perfect." And I felt like a student being praised by their teacher for getting the answer right. I could feel that I wanted his approval. But then things got more difficult. I got all the biographical questions right, but he wanted to know what my current balance was in my checking account. The problem with answering that question is that to get that information, I needed to use the banking app, which was on the phone that I was using to talk to him. I tried to explain that problem to him, but it wasn't anything he could fix. He needed answers to these questions. They had to be the correct answers. If not, there was nothing he could do. I had to get the answers, and it wasn't his problem how I did it. Then I realized I could access my banking app through a second phone. Unfortunately, that phone was packed away somewhere, and I would have to find it, get it out, turn it on, and wait for it to boot up. And then I would have to log on to my banking app from that phone. I asked the banking guy if he didn't mind waiting while I did all that, and he said it was fine. He just needed the answers. So now I'm stumbling around my room, holding one phone to my ear and trying to find my second phone, and then turning it on with one hand, and then I have to somehow log into my banking app with one hand. Then, of course, when I tried to launch the banking app, I was told that there was a new version of the app, and I had to download and install it. I didn't have a choice. The update was mandatory, and I had to update to the new version. Now I had to tell the banking guy that it was going to take longer because I had to update the banking app first, and I didn't know how long it would take. More and more, I felt like I was behaving like a criminal, and I thought this guy would start to become suspicious. Why was it so hard and taking so long for this guy to just tell me how much money was in his checking account? It sounded like I was a criminal stalling for time while my hacker buddies were trying to get the info. After what felt like forever, the banking app was updated and I was able to log in. I breathed a sigh of relief, and then I was able to answer all his questions. He asked for the balance of my checking account, my savings account, and my credit card, and then he asked detailed questions about a lot of the credit card transactions going back many months. He wanted to know how much the charge was on this or that date and what the charge was for. He went so far back in time that I couldn't even see the transactions on the app anymore. I had to go by memory, and I could feel him becoming suspicious again as I was just guessing what this or that charge could have been for. There were transactions in Indonesia and in Malaysia, and I had to remember what I was doing 6 months ago at that time and where I was. The bank guy was very good, by the way. He was professional and patient, but also friendly and kind of chatty. I think they made it part of their job to be chatty and able to indulge in small talk while doing their work. And he helped me through this process and waited patiently and listened to me while I babbled about inane things. And finally, we got to the end of his questions, and he decided that I really was who I said I was. And then we got to the bad news. My credit card was canceled. One thing I've learned is that this is an automatic process. It's a knee-jerk reaction of the world of credit cards. If you call your bank to even ask a question about a possible fraudulent charge on your card, that's it. The card is instantly canceled. You have no choice in the matter. And in this case, the bank's fraud detection unit had flagged my account. The guy I was talking to was in a different department, so he didn't know the details. But the second I placed the phone call, that was it for my credit card. Canceled. It's automatic and instantaneous. And since I live on planet Doug, I now face the problem of having this new credit card delivered to an address in Canada while I am in Malaysia. And I will have to rely on people in Canada to help me get it. So I will have no valid credit card until the new one is delivered. Plus, since I live on planet Doug, there is a postal service strike going on in Canada. Postal workers are out on strike, so they don't know how long it will take for the card to be mailed to my address in Canada. Once all of this was taken care of and I had managed to calm down enough to go to bed, it was 2 a.m, and then I was so worked up I wasn't able to go to sleep. So even though I had moved into the wonderful smoke-free room 307, I still didn't get any sleep. Things have been a bit out of control and busy in my life lately. Touch and Go Visa card. On the very positive side, just as I lost my actual credit card, I gained a debit card. I can't remember now how I stumbled across this fact, but I discovered that there was a possibility of getting a Visa card issued for my Malaysian Touch and Go eWallet. At first, I just assumed this was a pipe dream. People constantly tell me about all these amazing financial tools I can use, but it always turns out that for one reason or another, I was not eligible. You have to be a citizen of Malaysia to do it, or you have to physically be in Canada. You can't do these things when you are in the country on a tourist visa and have no permanent status as a resident. However, I heard about this Touch and Go Visa card, and then when I clicked on the card button in the app, I was taken to a very simple page where it looked like I would be able to get one. All I needed to do was fill out one simple form, and pay a 15 ringgit fee. And then, boom, I had a Visa card. Of course, this isn't a true credit card. You can't buy things on this card and run up a bill. It's a bank card or debit card, but it is connected to Touch and Go directly. And with this card number, you can pay for things online. It functions very much like a credit card in that there is a card number with a security code. And you enter that info online just like you would with a full credit card. And if you get the physical card itself, you can use it at an ATM to withdraw cash from your eWallet. I couldn't believe it when I discovered this. I don't have the card yet, and I haven't tried to use the account online yet, but in theory, I'll be able to access Touch and Go through an ATM in Malaysia and even in other countries. I used a friend's address to have the card delivered, and to my amazement, it was out for delivery very quickly, and it has already arrived. I am meeting my friend for breakfast tomorrow, and he will be able to give it to me. This could be perfect timing. Since my credit card has been canceled, I can't book rooms on Agoda anymore. But in theory, I will be able to use this new Touch and Go card instead, so I'm not completely stuck. I was so happy to find out about this possibility. It makes me feel like a grown-up to have another payment option like this. And that is the end of the written journal entry that I have about all those adventures. Yeah, I've kind of repeated myself a little bit because yesterday I mentioned that a friend of mine was Daryl, who I used his address to mail my Touch and Go Visa card to. He received it, told me he had it, so we arranged to meet for brunch yesterday morning, and then he can give me the card when I meet him for brunch. And then on my way there, I left a bit early and I had time on my hands waiting at an MRT station. So I sat down, and as part of the brunch video, I told the whole story about the bank credit card problem with the fraud detection unit and then getting the Touch and Go card. So I've told that story twice now, but I think that's okay. People who watch my Planet Doug videos may not read my Patreon journal entries, and anyone who reads my Patreon journal entries may not watch the behind the scenes podcast videos. So it's okay, I think, to repeat myself from time to time. Not everybody hears or reads everything. So yeah, I told the whole story when I was at the MRT, and then my friend Jamie showed up, and Jamie and I met with Daryl, and we went to the Kang Nam Hai Hawker Center, this food court. It's an amazing place. I love going there for brunch now. So yeah, we met there for brunch. Expat Pete was supposed to join us, but it turns out he couldn't make it, so he couldn't make it at the last minute. And then international big shot Bill, he was also supposed to come, but then he was at the marathon. He wanted to see, I think, the end of the big marathon that was this weekend, and he wanted to witness that. And if he had enough time, he was going to join us, but it turned out it didn't work out. So it was only Daryl, Jamie, and me. We had a great brunch. I filmed some of it, filmed the food, and then we went to a coffee shop after that later on, and I took video there as well. And I shot a concluding portion of that video back here in my room using my amazing new tripod. Yeah, interestingly enough, when I was at the MRT station, I wanted to get a coffee from these vending machines, and I wanted to record the process because I have a really strong interest in design, and I like to see how these machines work, how, when it does work, when it doesn't work, and I like to look at all the instructions and see if they make sense or not. 90% of the time, they don't make any sense at all, which I find amazing that these companies build these incredible automated coffee machines. Can you imagine the amount of engineering and manufacturing that goes into one of these things? And then all of the systems, the software and the firmware and the payment technology, all of that. And yet, after putting in so much work, they make these stickers to tell you how to use the machines, and the stickers never match what's on the machine. And I was like, how you spend like millions of dollars developing these machines? You'd think you would spend a couple $100 to make sure that your instructions are accurate, when they never are. And the first machine I went to was a coffee bot cafe machine, and it wouldn't work. The payment terminal just froze. You're supposed to, select your coffee, touch the payment terminal, and then it lights up like a scanner, and then you scan your QR code from your eWallet or tap your card or whatever it is you do. But every time I tried to do that, the payment window, the system just froze, and it kept rebooting the operating system, and it never actually came online. So I wasn't able to do it. But what I wanted to say was, while I was recording myself working on the coffee machine, there was no place to put my normal GoPro grip. I've got the GoPro jaws, and I clamp it to things and then aim the camera. Well, there's nowhere to do that, so I got to use my new tripod, and that was one of the situations where I wanted to have this tripod, and it was so much fun. I just got to stretch out my tripod to full height, put my GoPro on the top, put it on the floor there, and then I could just film myself. And I did it twice that morning. So this tripod is turning out to be an exceptional value for me. Funny thing is, I gave up on that coffee bot cafe machine. I couldn't get a coffee, so I went back down into the MRT where there are some other machines, and there's one there that has Japanese lettering on all the instructions, and I have to use Google Translate to figure out what all the instructions are. And I couldn't get that machine to work either. There's no, I don't know. And it turns out though that I think I made the mistakes that time, because you got to the payment system, and then on the payment screen it said scan QR code. So I shop in stores so often, and I'm always doing that. So I go to my touch and go eWallet, I open it up, I get my QR code, and they scan it, and then the payment goes through. So it says scan QR code. So I'm on autopilot, and I open up my touch and go, I get the QR code, and then I'm like trying to get this machine to scan it, but I can't find the scanner. I'm not sure how to do it, so I gave up on that machine. But it turns out what you're supposed to do is scan their QR code. So it always goes one of two ways. Either you scan their code or they scan your code. And then I got it wrong. And then I went on to another machine that I did manage to figure that out, and I got a can of cold coffee. But even there, things were weird, because the coffee falls down into the delivery slot at the bottom, and then you have to take it out, but it's covered by a flap. And on the flap, there's this huge sign that says push. You're supposed to push on the flap to get your hand in to get your coffee. But this machine, you don't push, because when you push it, it just jams. It's the kind that you have to lift up. So even that machine, whoever designed it, whoever made it, just didn't even get the wording right, and they put a big sign on there that said push when it should say something like lift up. Lift, and then you can get your coffee. So it just amazes me how often these instructions are wrong on these machines. Big things like this push lift thing, and even small ones like on the Coffee Bot Cafe, you're reading, they had two separate sets of instructions, and you read one set of instructions, it's different from the second set of instructions, and neither one of them matches what happens when you try to do something on the machine. So for example, on the instructions it says, do this, select your drink, then press the order button. That's what it says. But when you go through the system, there is no order button. Everywhere you look around, there is no order button. I eventually found a button that said pay, and when you pay, it's a two-step process. So the instructions didn't match the reality at all. And I don't know, I find it interesting that happens. But anyway, I had a good brunch, good cup of coffee, and then I came back here to my room and I recorded all of this on video. I sat here and I activated my brand new Touch and Go Visa card. That was amazing. It worked really, really well. It comes in an envelope with a piece of paper that I can't show you, but on the paper are the instructions, and it gives you a QR code that you scan to activate your card. So you just go onto your smartphone, the eWallet app, and then you click on card, Visa card, though it doesn't actually match the instructions either, not exactly. But then you click on activate, and then when you click on activate, it says scan the QR code in the letter that we sent you. And then you scan it, you're done. And then you choose a PIN, 6-number PIN, and you're done. One interesting trick about this touch and go Visa card is that on the card itself, it has my name, but that's it. There's no card number, there's no expiry date, and there's no security code. Like on a credit card, right, it's got a normal credit card has your name on it, has the credit card number on it, and on the back it has the 3-digit security code. There's a name for that code. What's it called? I forget the name of it. It has a special name. So all the information is on the card itself, which is actually kind of dangerous when you think about it. If you lose your credit card, whoever picks up your credit card has all the information they need to use it, which is kind of weird when you think about it. And this new touch and go Visa card is, other than your name, completely blank. But if you want to get that information, you go into the eWallet app, and the eWallet app has a photograph, like a graphic image of your card, and all the details are hidden, but you press, the show details button, and then you have to put in your security code to reveal the details, and then it shows you your Visa card number, your expiry date, and the 3-number code, which I didn't realize that in this case, because it's an eWallet card, you have 2 security numbers. You've got your PIN, which is 6 numbers long, the one that you choose, and then you've also got a 3-digit security code, just like a credit card, but it is chosen automatically for you, and it's listed on the eWallet app. So once I activated it, then I wanted to try it out, and I went to Agoda to book this room again. I'm in room 307, by the way. I was talking about how I moved to a new room, and this new room was not supposed to have a fridge or a kettle, but it does. It does have a fridge and a kettle. There's a nice big window. The one problem with it is it still has a door connecting to the next room. So just like the room where I had trouble with the smoker, this room also has potential trouble depending on who your neighbors are. But so far, whoever my neighbors are, I don't know. They don't smoke, so the smoke is not coming into my room. And of course, me sitting here recording this video could potentially be annoying them terribly. I don't really know. My voice does tend to carry if I'm speaking on camera, but my voice volume does go up quite a bit. So I'm speaking relatively loudly, and I've been talking for a couple hours now, and I could be bothering them a lot. But there's nothing I can do about it, right? At some point, I paid for this hotel room, and I need to do certain things in my room, and I can't worry too much. The fact that there's a connecting door to another room, that's not my fault. I had nothing to do with that, and I have to record these videos, so I'm just doing it anyway. And whoever's in that room, hopefully they're not in the room right now. Hopefully they're out doing something in the city, and I'm not bothering them. But yeah, I don't really have a choice. But again, as I said in my written journal, most people are not as bothered by noise as I am. So like someone talking for a long time in a neighboring room, it really wouldn't bother too many Malaysians, I don't think. Certainly it wouldn't bother Indonesians or people from some other countries around Southeast Asia. They're very, very noisy countries, and everybody just learns to live with like massive amounts of noise and chaos going on around them all the time. You just accept it as part of life. Malaysia's quite a bit quieter, so, unwanted noise could bother Malaysians, I think, but who knows? Hopefully I'm not bothering my neighbors too much. But after I activated my Touch and Go Visa card, then I went on to Agoda because I needed to stay here in KL. Again, I need to stay a little bit longer. So I was supposed to go to Port Dickson today to get reunited with my bicycle, but I can't go today. I'm too busy. And then I needed to extend my stay. I wanted to keep this room. And then I went on to Agoda and I figured out how to use my Visa card to pay for it. And it deducts the money automatically from Touch and Go. So for the first time ever, I paid for a hotel room using my Touch and Go balance, which was an amazing thing to do. Because normally I just use it for purchases at a store or a restaurant, shops, things like that. I don't think I've ever used Touch and Go to pay for a hotel room before, but now that I have the power of the Touch and Go Visa card, I can do more things with my Touch and Go eWallet, which is really amazing. It makes my life so much better, particularly because I lost my credit card, but the moment I lost my credit card, I get a debit card, and it's kind of filling in the gaps for me, making my life possible. So I think that is it. I'm going to wind this up. I just wanted to read those two journal entries, get all caught up. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed some of those stories. It's a little bit different, of course, reading them aloud rather than speaking directly to the camera. But as I said, I wrote these out in full, so I thought I might as well read them aloud. And I have a video recording of those journal entries for behind the scenes. So that's it. Shutting down. See you in the next video.